At 17, she decided to try. Her first suicide attempt failed, but shortly afterwards, she tried again.
When I reached this light, there was no one there, no beam of light. Just the white light. And I hear this enormous voice, like a thunder coming from everywhere, but nowhere. Kind of coming like this, saying, "You cannot stay here. You have not even begun your work yet." Oh, I thought to myself, here we go again. So I am very feisty and I argue with everything and everybody. I wanted to argue with this voice, but trust me, you don't argue with that voice.
Nadia obeyed the voice and came back to Earth. When she woke, she was alone. The doctors had left the room, pronouncing her dead.
But after this happened, I understood that, this was not a good idea. They don't want me. So I just have to be here, find my mission, do what I have to do, and I will never attempt suicide again. It's useless.
So she searched for her mission. She married and moved to San Francisco. In her 40s, she discovered what she had to do: help terminally ill patients come to terms with their own mortality. 25 years after her own near-death experience, Nadia has found peace.
We have duties. We all have a mission. The point is to find what this mission is.
Dutch cardiologist Pim van Lommel is challenging the theory of the dying brain. For 13 years, he studied over 300 patients who had suffered heart and breathing failure for a prolonged period. To his surprise, only a very few reported near-death experiences.
There was no explanation whatsoever. There was no difference between the 82% of patients who survived cardiac arrest without an NDE and the 18% who had an NDE. When it would have been a physiological explanation, say the anoxia of the brain, you would expect everybody to have that experience if the anoxia is the explanation.
So Van Lommel concluded that oxygen starvation was not responsible for NDEs. When a pacemaker is implanted under a general anesthetic, it triggers an artificial cardiac arrest. An EEG, a machine that registers tiny electrical signals coming from the brain cells and nerves, monitors activity.
What you see that is after
6.5 seconds, the EEG started to show chemical responses, and then at an average of 15 seconds, the EEG is flat.
Van Lommel believes that on the brink of death, there is a 6-second window when the brain is triggering specific chemicals that might cause hallucinations. But once that window closes and the brain shuts down, no more images or feelings can be received. But there are some cases which seem to defy this scientific logic. Vicky Umipeg from Seattle in the USA has been blind since birth. In January 1973, she was terribly injured in a car crash.
I had a skull fracture, concussion, neck injury, back injury, leg injury, and I was dead for 4 minutes.
Vicky's heart had stopped. Was she clinically dead, or just in a deep coma?
My back was up against the ceiling, and then I was looking down at everything. The one doctor said, well, it's a pity now that she could be deaf as well as blind because there's blood on her left eardrum. And then the female doctor said, well, we don't even know if she's going to survive this coma, and if she does, she could be in a permanent vegetative state, and that made me mad.
As she fought for her life, something even more extraordinary happened. Vicky could see for the very first time.
I felt like it was a nightmare because I have never been accustomed to perceiving of anything from a distance. And I touch things. My world is at arm's length. I perceive of everything tactily, and I couldn't translate what it was that I was receiving. And it was scary to be able to, a lot of people have asked me, well, wasn't it wonderful to see? Actually, no, it wasn't. It was terrible initially. I saw this ring on my left ring finger, and I thought, okay, that is me. And I also realized I had very long hair then down to my waist, and I realized that they'd shaved off quite a lot of it, and I was pretty upset about that.
How could Vicky's blind eyes see?
I mainly dream even with taste, touch, sound, and smell, but in my dreams there is no light, no color, and there are no visual impressions.
Vicky's experience interests scientists. She works with a psychologist from New York University specializing in the near-death experiences of the blind, Sharon Cooper.
If you compared her case with many sighted near-death experiencers, you would not find differences. The only difference that I was able to discern between her case and a sighted person is her description of color. She called it different brightnesses of light, and that's because she had no way to understand what color was. She did notice differences in the environment during her experience. She just didn't know what to call them.
Vicky Umipeg survived and returned to her world of darkness. She still has no doubt that for just a few minutes, she was able to see.
I do know that there are many people who are going to be skeptical and who don't understand and who don't believe what I say, but I know what I experienced, I know what I saw, I know what I heard, I know what I felt. And so I just leave it at that.
Cardiologist Pim van Lommel also has his own explanations about how images are received into a non-functioning brain.
Till now we had a concept.
Until now we had a concept that consciousness and memories are generated by your brain. If this concept is true, then it would not be possible to experience your full consciousness with memories from early childhood, with cognition, with emotion, with perception, above and beyond your body, during a period when your brain is not functioning.
Of your brain that is not functioning.
But if the brain is dead and unable to generate images, where do they come from? Van Lommel's controversial theory is that in some way consciousness exists outside the brain, something it can plug into.
So I compare the brain with a kind of...
So I compare the brain with a kind of receiver, as an interface, as a decoder for consciousness, to connect consciousness to our world. The internet you receive is not in your computer. When you switch your computer off, the internet is still everywhere.
Everywhere where you put another computer on.
If his theory is correct, then the visual components of NDEs are visions of an unplugged brain floating freely through a web of consciousness. Few agree. And psychological studies have shown that believing imagined experiences to be true can lead to the development of false memory syndrome. People start thinking that events that never happened are real. Science is struggling to unlock the mystery of memory and consciousness. There's much we just don't understand. We do know that from early childhood the brain starts selecting some events to store. We don't know why that selection is made, how it's stored, or why some memories resurface. A world expert on this complex process is Nobel Prize winner, neurologist Philip Sharp.
We believe those synaptic contacts between